Hi everyone, my name is Tanielle Hartwig and I'm currently completing my secondary education degree at QUT in the fields of both physical education and English. This particular video I am creating is for the subject edb005, which focuses on the 10 QCT professional standards which underpin how we practice as teachers currently. As you can see, I've created a poster which outlines some of the learning experiences which I have been responsible for implementing and how these learning experiences relate back to the 10 QCT professional standards. Now, while I've covered all 10 on this poster, later on we are just going to focus on standards 1 to 5. Now, while on my third field studies experience at Chancellor State College, I was given the opportunity to take responsibility for a Year 8 English class. Throughout the unit I was teaching, students were required to read an intercultural novel in order to gather an understanding of the elements of a novel, including setting, plot, character, and theme. Students were then required to apply their understanding of these elements to a visual representation of the novel through scrapbooking items which they believe portrayed the elements of their novel accurately. Just as an example, one of the students chose to display the element of character through filling a gap or silence in the text, and they did this by writing a diary entry using similar vocabulary and themes displayed throughout their novel. In order to facilitate learning throughout this unit, I structured some lessons for students to work on their scrapbooks, others to explore the elements of a novel more explicitly as a whole class in order to engage everyone and assist with understanding, and the last lesson for each week involves students participating in a session called reading groups. The reading group session will act as the focus for my explanation of how I applied QCT professional standards 1 to 5, which make up the teaching and learning component of these standards. Reading group lessons consisted of set groups of 5 to 6 students who would gather and discuss their findings from the novel each week, with each member having a role that required them to contribute to the group in a different way. As mentioned in my poster, I immediately addressed Professional Standard 4, which is to design and implement learning experiences that value diversity throughout my selection of both novels for the unit and the students who would receive these particular novels. So just as an example, I selected a variety of novels from a diverse range of cultural backgrounds, which you might be able to see here, in order to introduce and allow students to explore a set of values, attitudes, and beliefs which may have been different to their own. I also took the liberty of selecting more perplexing texts for the students who required a challenge in the classroom, and grouped students who required extra assistance with peers who would be able to explain and assist these students in order to help them understand the set tasks at that time. Additionally, by doing this, I was able to reduce behaviour management problems, which was just a bit of a bonus for future lessons, as I could separate those who often set other students off track when I initially created these groups. So I've also suggested in my poster that by selecting a text which aligned with students' ability levels, that students remained engaged with the novel, its content, and conversations during reading groups, as they were able to understand what was occurring and feel competent in the task which they were completing, which is obviously extremely important. This addressed Standard 1, which is to design and implement engaging and flexible learning experiences for individuals and groups. In addition to novel and group selection, however, I also believe that Standard 1 was addressed through the students' weekly roles that were allocated, as some roles involve students writing while others involve drawing or even mapping, and then again others included the use of interpersonal skills through ensuring conversations remained on topic during reading groups. As students were given the opportunity to engage with the content through a variety of modes novel in order to gather an understanding of the elements of a novel, including setting, plot, character, and theme. Students were then required to apply their understanding of these elements to a visual representation of the novel through scrapbooking items which they believe portrayed the elements of their novel accurately. Just as an example, one of the students chose to display the element of character through filling a gap or silence in the text. And they did this by writing a diary entry using similar vocabulary and themes displayed throughout their novel. In order to facilitate learning throughout this unit, I structured some lessons for students to work on their scrapbooks, others to explore the elements of a novel more explicitly as a whole class in order to engage everyone and assist with understanding. And the last lesson for each week involves students participating in a session called reading groups. The reading groups The exact roles that students participated in, including things like setting sleuth, character chaser, word wizard, and a variety of others. While each role required students to record and summarize the events in the novel, each was done in a slightly different way. So, for example, the role of the setting sleuth was to create a written report or perhaps a drawing or a map in order to display their understanding of the set chapters and the setting in that and how they interpreted that in particular to their reading group. Alternatively, the role of word wizard, for example, was to identify difficult or unfamiliar words and research their definitions. Through roles such as this, Standard 2 was certainly attended to, as students were required to engage in activities which involved high levels of literacy and language development. At the completion of each reading group lesson, students were required to also complete a review sheet, which consisted of rating and making comments on both their own and peers' participation during the reading group lesson. Not only was it based on during the lesson, however, it was also based on whether the students were prepared for this, so whether they had actually completed their tasks for the week, and that was very evident to other students in their group. So it was fantastic for me to be able to have quite an accurate record of who was completing their work, who did understand it, and who needs a bit more help. So these review sheets acted as a type of formative assessment and address Standard 5 of the professional standards, as they allowed me to monitor and address any concerns regarding individual students' contributions and understanding of the content on a weekly basis. I found that by providing regular formative feedback to students that they put more effort into their work, as they knew I would be reviewing their work each week, which was potentially also a motivator for students to have their roles completed, thus ensuring that the reading groups could be successful each week. So that acts as the conclusion to my presentation. I really hope that everyone enjoyed it and you were able to gain something from it as well. Thank you.